Okay, I'll flip this to full screen and get going. Okay, my office hours tomorrow are canceled. And there's a key start stop that's 1% of your grade. It is the easiest part of just go and fill it and will it over break. Do a statistical analysis because that's what we do for fun. 3 questions, keep doing what should we stop? What's your mid feedback for what class better for you in learning the material, grading it into your at Princeton? Yeah. So, but it's Bach. There's no problem. Okay. I'll to arrange post that on fire so that you notice on campus. As a campus, just go on 2-3-5 minutes to answer it. We appreciate that, and we do mid-semester, especially because each course changed and post-COVID, still getting back structures. Back today, without the stations and that sort of distribution of the, but you can pick those as per last time, right outside us. And the quiz. During beginning of next, your grades of this point. So once data camp is, once you start feedback is in, your pre-materials today, the quiz and the give you cutoff like A plus, that sort of thing. And I'll just numbers. As a heads up, the S for me is not necessarily entirely grade based, that's grade, but not so above a certain threshold, like a 9.5 or whatever it turns out this year, then I get your precept, and you just need that from your precept knows you and says been doing amazing, ludicrously campus wire, whatever. But it always a little extra from your precept push you up into that range. Cool. You know, there's some here who didn't walk from out of a deep statistics, but into a major. The stuff to get into speed C, you're not going to get a C from going to keep you your major. Unless you do like not handle. All right. If genuine, there's no grade that is enough to have me say you can't continue major. Make sense? So yes. So means is I'm going to grade that's below a C. If you minus or range, I'm going to look at your and say, was an effort? Only every year, there's always students who are hard and just are no good at it. Happens. Something that, yeah, no, okay. Happens. I'm keep you out of your because of that. Basically, it's really get an A plus, and it's really get a C or okay. Quick, anything else on all that before we? Okay. I'm going to talk about rectangular data or non-forms of data. Let me explain how it's going to fit into all the talk about fair game important to literature in the social sciences. What I'm going to do is incorporate into these are the problems, exact nature policies we're doing. We're not the regression, that sort of thing, but increasingly to be a user part in policies, political debates, all these. You need to be adept at reading sciencey types, works that use standard data and measurements. That's what we're talking about today. When we get through it, the based indices and text permitting will the network data. I think if I talk, we can get through 3. The important all of these is until the maybe 5 years, these weren't standard data. So in this, we're starting with like outcome. Here's these kids. This seemed to cause, is this to that? Does it that? That's playing it. Okay, and we're playing in for reasons that it's need to start these things, but I want to give you a forecast you can do, and you can go past that. All right. First thing we're going to talk about are indices scaling, which are old and new. I'll get to had a transformative effect on sciences in or political science. Scaling. A lot of it comes from relational testing, which writes the essays, and it's just a couple short miles, 2 or 3 miles from. And what they wanted to was the following: give those test scores, we map test scores, meaning no answers, a variety of questions. So a bunch of different people take yes or no on a variety of questions, map it back to a number. I'm talking that has been at some point in yeah. The mechanical statistical machinery behind educational. How do I take a person that's in ones? I get it right, I get it wrong. Get that back to a number. That statistical modeling with. It maps to your score, your A score, your GRE, SAT, other international ones. And you answer right or wrong back to a number, that's scaling. And so we're these right or wrongs and map them number. Interpret as we think the latent construct, we're latent and visible, sorry, it's a fancy way, unobserved. So like SAT scoring, we don't want to intelligence for all sorts of reasons. It's measuring to take the SAT 100. But is that scores are mapped back to underlying, which we can order from high to low scores. Everybody's logic of that? Right around the early 80s, now it's political science, and said, you know, we've been doing this for in education. Why don't we same thing for votes? Congress. So you take yes votes, all the votes that Congress, and apply the same statistical models that the Asian people do to back a score. And there's important issues and different or some mathematical but the idea is the same. And we take this zeros and person, just zeros and one, they vote on the bill, and then put it back to an measure. The measure, what that looks like, I'll give you that in a moment. What I want to talk about, what we do with the bill is we use order observations. For you, it was highest SAT, lowest SAT. GPA is a score you up, and it just creates a ordering. A lot in when evaluating different product. My favorite for scaling is it comes from XD. And here they're scaling fruit. What they're doing is recognizing fruit 2 dimensions. Easy to build, tasty to tasty. So there are 2 dimensions we can organize fruit. Grape, easy, tasty. Those are but kind of, or red. Lemons are kind of different. Pomegranate, tasty, but difficult, but a little untasty. Apples are tasty. Do folks have how to so to do? By the way, I have a chance to this exact cartoon. The cartoon is grapefruit because it's arguing they hates grape. It's both tasty and hard. But read this graph. What I'm about to do is take legislators on the same graph. What's, oh, okay. So we're about to put it on the same. The mention that's the axis is going to come with what America today we call conservative. Corresponds roughly to arguments of the social state, the fight having since then. Along mention, you're going to Bernie Sanders on one side and on the other. Okay, it's just a very easy dimension up in our Congress. The second dimension is going to be why, which is primary dimension organizes votes in Congress. This machinery is the social welfare, taxes, redistribution. If you've been following the agenda with better, like it's an argument. Second dimension that shows a racial argument. Shows up from time. It's consistent through you, but it does show. That's a dimension that recognizes, I guess, I had to use the phrase racist, but it organized on dimension that organizes people support policies that help minorities. So we're going to take machinery and from votes. What's been happening? Okay. This is first dimension. This is the first dimension for members of U.S. House. 1960, 2013. Democrats are labeled blue, the Republicans are labeled in red, and the density deal point estimated time. And what I notice, 1960, the two groups were together with still overlap. Over the 50 since, the Democrats, according to this, stayed roughly were, and the Republicans have moved out longer and are to the right and no interact or with the Democrats. I don't want to out as the last time an academic contributed to ever, so put this out as this is the last that everyone agrees field. But this people, this is a reason to summarize data with that's that it's hard to movement. So okay, but for study these captures important characteristics of what's this is the first one, which is over is redistribution social spending. That figure has the first and second. So on the hand side, the side is the figure I showed you. That's the side that most of the explains our politics as measured by votes of Congress. Okay, the right side is the dimension. This dimension explain as much first dimension, but it's not in the data. What you'll see is in 1983, to the left, we have a part is, let's see if I, a part in favor, I'm just going to say rights. Okay, to the left is support of civil rights, to the right are legislators don't support issues. Okay, you'll see is that in 1960, Republicans are supporting and the Democrats not because of the Democratic Southern Party. And then over time, those two just, I want to say they, but mushed together. And now have the Democrat Party leading rights, but not always drastically. And then Republicans are to it, but the current Republicans aren't as to it. The Democrats 1960. And that's out of this figure. Folks who follow things in their courses roughly match the last 50 years. Nice thing about we're recovering entirely from roll call. So from roads, we're using computational test technology to capture score and a suspension score. and use this to tell stories, important stories, in many ways, stories, what's been happening in our politics. Focus on this all the way to the founding of the doing so creates problems because to see that Jameson was more to Bernie Sanders. Like that just sentence doesn't for me at all. So the time to make is always difficult. If you're looking at relatively time period of civil rights today, those sort of comparisons are just regarded as recent. People have applied to the Supreme Court. These papers goes up in the news regularly. Like, why court more of how do we social science? Not because we Kavanaugh replacing Ruth Bader and Scalia, or Ruth Bader in this case. Oh, they're more conservative. What they do is actually they're recorded and processed over a first that puts Clarence that puts on one side or Clarence on one side and then puts together. And we can relation whenever people are something and summarize notes down to a number and a situation. Understanding the points they show up regularly in literature, popular literature. Also, having the YouTube of the D-donate scores open, find it, post it where it's on YouTube. Like a 3-minute, it's a 3-minute, maybe 6-minute. These measure time on a, and then you look at it and you know history. It's like things a little bit, then the horn it goes, and the party sides, and you can sort of see American playing out through. Really lens of observational meaning roll call, turn it into interesting and social. I'm not going to get far into this. It does create an interesting point. What people will scale leaders get a liberative score, then what the thing called bridge, where they go out in public and ask people bills that the legislature voted on. Support this? Did you support this? By getting letters to vote on, by getting respondents to vote on the bill, you can usually say our legislators more conservative than their constituent. The main thing from this, which I think a few years ago existed, what the understanding is always a 2-year delay application and thing, but from a few years ago. What seems the case is that there's that's the distribution of is the median graph, and then the are letters. So what's happening is that legislate well to the median graph. Republican legislator well to the median Republican. And if you switch party, new candidate, they call it leapfrog. You end up going a Republican to the right of Republican and go to a Democrat who's to the left median Democrat. Where's that in the median? Is there someone else? The answer is no. This idea that representation is really in the tail of the voter decision is something that's been regularly through the turn. We're only to do this. We can scale in the survey. We can take to how this and what do you that and turn it into a ring of people. And that's the result. Oh, now we're going to talk forms of data. Normally when we think it looks like this, right, you end up, is that our studio? That's our studio. You've all looked, presuming, or you've all looked at, literally looked at some point, God willing. If you haven't, something you can and should. Used to what's called angular data. because like a rectangle, it's one observation, every observation to the variable. Data is regular and active work statistics science to handle rectangular data like this. That's the president of the United States, Trump, with his picture of his Twitter. He was for phone and leading with public health data. Okay. He had it famously, he had an account for years. And what we do is dig in Twitter data. We can do in public data that play with quite a bit. Actually, tweet as data rather than the regular data set uses data. And uses data. We can use as a follower who follows. I haven't seen someone do this with Instagram yet, but I think it's a generation. Like people are like, "What's Instagram?" Right? But I suspect 5 or 10 years to see a lot of Instagram and follow and trace effects of various relations on Twitter or just Twitter data. This is a new form, right? Like where you open up you get the last, say, where's your data? This. So how about handling? There, the data. It turns out the work with actually just data into the scraping the so that you can in a way that handle it in the computer, not immediately. For those interested, data has a few course text analysis that I as a starting. I'll have access to that. But let's hear. What to explore is when you tweet, the records what form your tweet, whether it's an Android or is this a Mac, iOS, iPhone. It says whether you're an iPhone or right, and it's that president of the States had him who intervened, and he and an account of this is actually Adele. Love his voice, obviously, but she would apparently have too much at night and start about exes. And whoever man was like, "You can't hear Adele," and she, "But I'm broken." I'm taking her away, and but she was brokenhearted. Much better than that. Donald Trump was sort of. He had a staff who had an tweet from his, and he'd go online and watch Fox and rage tweet. This is all invented. To do is back evidence. No one knows this actually happened, but we're going to bet some compelling that is happened. That this is the tweets phone is a difference than the Android. Social science, right, is discernible difference between this text, that text, the text on the same tweet. Let's see how we do this. By the way, analysis here. So the things you can do is we're going to compare iPhone and the Android and try and get a sense of what these tweets are happening, what the differences between them, in order to establish whether they're. So one of the things is look at when the tweet made. What you'll notice, the Android is him. He's the Android. So he's tweeting 6, 7 a.m. And then the which is his stats around 9, maybe about 7, but it takes off 9. He tweets until 5 or 6, maybe till about 8 with a break. So what you'll notice, the blue line right around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, like business hours. The Android is moving. So what we're here is that there's a different time where are going out. Android is put it different mornings. It's going mornings. The I is going out during the day, it's tweeting around. All right. This established that people are doing it, switching devices. But this at least some evidence what maybe some substantial difference in time between the tweets and the androids. Now this is just time. You could do this, you could make this figure. There's pictures in so in this case, no picture from the android, but there are pictures coming from the iPhone. So we're seeing more, we're seeing pictures and links from the iPhone. Okay. So at least that's something is happening. Now what we're is the word frequency the entire feed, which is just a measure of how words are used. So use the most. Hashtag 16. Crooked and hashtag grading and cruise bad. Okay. This looks like a way of presenting his Twitter feed, right? Entire Twitter feed. Interesting. Put this out. All those letters. See how all the words case? There's no capitals. It's almost required, almost all done before you add text data, you process it. When you pre-process data, do a few different. One is you take what's called stops, and these are of and in positions, right? Because if the was in there, would dominating everything. Doing this analysis to use the word a lot. Gets rid of pronouns, participles, sorts of things. Then you do something stemming. Stemming does is off suffix suffixes. So the word pic and picture, it'll place it down to PICT because we probably put those together. The last thing to do, you pre-process data, will look not single, which are grams, but multiple together. So, for example, we might want the bigram, crooked hill, and crooked showing up, Hillary showing up. We might want to use gram crooked Hillary. So what you'll do, turn the word counts of each, also record counts of 2 phrases and 3 phrases, and just an America graded word phrases. Let's see. This doesn't get at our question, though. Also, we'll talk about clouds, but you can use for this too. What we know, or relative frequency. Talked about log. This is a place to show up. What we're going to do is each word, the numerator of number and android plus 1 over the number of android plus. So the portion of that word in the android denominator is the proportion the word shows up iPhone feed. So at that ratio, take a log. If that number is, anyone know if 1 is? 0. Phew. Set that to positive number, mean that the word as a portion of the feed, the word used by positive numbers are going to get the word that's used more by Android. Negatives are going to denote that's used more by the I. And that's what this is giving us. All right. So let's and check out the word that is likely to be used or the other. So in this case, the word much more to be used by in the iPhone On the right are bad lazy weeks talking males, Senate died, Brexit treated guns divided. Anything like the Florence cadence. Okay. The ones more be used by half, go bottom up. Hashtag America Great Again, hashtag Trump 16, join, hashtag America, hashtag vote, hashtag with you, hashtag with Hillary, hashtag Trump Pence, PM tomorrow, hashtag in Mary, hashtag C, RNC. RNC included, thank you. I was like, okay, thank you. Super Tuesday, Trump train, tag, sorry, correct. No, which one is correct? Android, Trump train. So the thing is that the word between the suggests that differences there. One more likely to be badly, and the other side to be advancing campaign. Okay. Social science is not a hard. Now what I can do, and there's ways to do analysis, but we've been focused so far is word occurrence, right? Shows up more in analysis or in text data, not just a which word shows up the most. Equally important, does it have a positive or a negative? So is the word or negative? There's multiple ways to do analysis, and we're going to split into broadly. The first methods that sentiment from, and you can do ongoing, a toy in this literature is being reviews and figuring out if they're negative, and movie, right, and come positive or negative. That's sort of the thing scientists play to train their class. That's where you use the self to figure out the negatives. Another way you can do the dictionary method, and psychologists spent a lot of time doing validating these. What they'll do actually take sets of words or tell you whether or not. And what you do is you can dictionary, run your data, and then aggregate how many words are showing up like that words are showing up. On that one, you're with the dictionary of a negative psychiatry that just have developed painstakingly in it. I found they were calculate for each. So in this, look at what the result here. Difference in sense. This is the increased grade percentage to the I. And what you'll see in this figure is that the Android is likely to have words negative sentiment, more likely words marked trust, more like words representing and fear, anger, and then the rest sufficiently close to that I wouldn't take much about it because those words all include there on down. Look at it. So whoever's speaking Android here, tweeting Android, is using that have a sense of negative sentiment, disgust, and fear and anger relative to. All right. So I think things we can do is which words are associated with what sentiment. Here, this is a child. So in this, the words denoting are bad, crazy, loss, disaster. The words discussing joy are feel special, winning, discussed words, and we talked when creating images. I present an in like what making it, and in this tells you the word go into it. Discussed. Angry, master, lie, join, dirty, winning. All right. I mean, like, possibly, I'd do that. But careful when someone along with the sentence analysis and has it as and what particularly tweets particularly can the most to the index. Last part, this separate analysis. And it was a similar run. And in this case, ran the tweets against these other sources. So they data from then for nationalist tweets, other category from the Southern Liberty Lost the Southern Power Center. Okay, from groups labeled group. Nationalist, Trump, neo-Nazi, neo-Confederates, KKK, black separatists, anti-Muslim, anti-LGBT, anti-government. And these are identified by the poverty law, so actually be picked up in their Twitter put together. The axis has the HCO groups. It came then statistical applied to try and distinguish the tweet. I'm sorry, that's the x-axis as what they're assigned to. Darker color means the tweets from the y-axis were assigned to the axis classifier. So they trained everybody, then tried to assign it to the different. This figure is that tweets that were set Trump are likely to be a Trump. That's the Trump on the y all the way to the x-axis. The interesting result here is that tweets that came from KK were likely to Trump as well. Classifier distinguished between Trump's tweets from the KK is classified yearly. Okay. Cool. If you want more about text, here's a place to some resources. And then, we've got an example, but while everybody's attending, feedback on the far keep start, you'll see canvas it is the 1% grade. Moving on network data. Boy. So comes Milgram 67, a quote from the paper. Fred Jones sitting in a cafe and needing a light cigarette asked the table for a conversation. In England, turns out, spent months in Detroit in the operation interchangeable bottle factory. I know it's a fashion, says Joe, but did you have a chance to run into a man named Ben Arcadian? A friend of mine, maintain of super in Detroit. Arcadian, the English. On my soul, I do. Small, very energetic. Raised Mary the factory over of defective caps. No kidding, Jones in amazement. Lord, it's a world, isn't it? This is the stuff that talk about this gave us 60 separation. This idea we're a number of away from any on the planet. Obviously shrunk Facebook, but in the 1960s, that number 6. Now, I'll tell you where that came from. Has anyone plus degrees of Kevin still a thing? Sort of? Yeah, okay. So the ask is, what is the probability that chosen at random each other? Great. But probability that people chosen share a friend? What's the probability number of connections between people is 0 friends? And if they have a mutual, 2 if they're 2 away, or 3 or 5, how far do we go in order to everybody? So the off sent going out. And it's really random for the sake of I'm not going to read the out. But what he ended up, he sent a letter, put on the letter, he sent it to a random, chose another random. And with the letter, series of envelope stamps. And so this person in California, if this person can the letter, a letter is like an email, but it's printed. It's like you send them the letter, don't, can you send an acquaintance of you think might get closer? And then what he did is he said, are this person letter, can you send it to me and just sign, tell me how many people to get to you? Folks sort of see the sign of this? It kind of worked, right? Isn't that a cool? I thought it was. So in case, these are the results from the original. Look at the number of intermediaries, or he had people at the end of the day where he got. There were average 0.2 intermediaries between two randomly people in his, that 5.6 degrees separation. Or have folks heard the separation comes from that 5.2 in between his space? Okay. Here is the paper, Doherty and Stanley. So in this 500 white star delay in 8 in New York City, sent it off. The target was not necessarily known to Pence. And parts compared the rate between targets and blacks, and it was still 0.5 or 0.9, getting roughly the same number. And this article made an impact on the public. Just suggested that before social media, we're all closer than we realize, right? It's warm fuzzy for today. And it's also study in networks and applying theory to social works and doing mathematical work that actually suggests 6 is about mathematical. There's some the social that create and the density that suggest all the interconnectedness given the position of our world. Okay, so just before we go on, to give you how far we are, first about half materials are done. The problem set 1 of 3 and 1 of 2, so we're 32.5 the course, or 30% of the course, or about a third of the. Once I get the quiz in and your questions back, the keep start stop, I'll post just 1 second. A minus A, B. This is important. No what your average, anything 90 will always A. The will always be minus or above. The A minus will be above 90. So if you have a 90 average, no matter how you'll be A plus. Other than that, go to McGraw office hour, and if you're dropping, feel free to talk to me. Break are outside.